Hello, 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 it's me. Surprise! You'll notice that my hair is a little bit wet as I just got out of the shower and I'm still putting myself together, but you know, it's fine. Don't worry about it. How's everybody doing? It's Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Tomorrow is garbage day. I did see, I'd had the information passed on to me that Elon Musk is teaming up with Osmongold, so we've got the trash teaming up with a cockroach, and they're going to, I guess, have Osmongold moving off of Twitch and onto Twitter, as if Twitter currently known as X, and that, he's going to be attempting to stream there 20 hours or something a day or some insane amount of time. That's what he said, right? Was it that long? Whatever. He said he was going to be streaming for some like a crazy amount of time. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thanks. I just like cleaned it up today. So it's Wednesday. Hey, Ivy, good to see you. Congratulations on the shout out that you got in what was that, the French Post? A reporter reached out to Ivy to talk about some projects that Ivy's been working on to try to help, you know, the poor Americans out there. You poor bastards. But yeah, if you're interested in that or you want to find out more about the project and what Ivy's working on, reach out. 20 hours a week. Okay, that makes more sense. So he's not totally moving off of Twitch, I guess. Probably because he doesn't believe that Elon and Twitter are actually a viable source. But, you know, what's fucking Elon's history of successfully doing anything technologically based recently? Is it not Starlink? Recently the Starship has fumbled 3 flights in a row. When he tried to live stream on X, he got exposed for pretending to be not him because he got too mad. He tried to do like the announcement for like Ron DeSantis running for president, and like that completely fucking flubbed. So like his like success with technology, especially things related to Twitter, currently known as X, is not exactly. Is this? You know what? Listen, if the trash is gonna take itself out, I'm here for it. Go ahead. I don't like either of these people, so it doesn't surprise me that they're working together and they like to lie about video games and pretend they're fucking things that they're not because all they do is LARP and yada yada yada. Anyway, Musk dumped some trash into the Indian Ocean again. Yeah, that's accurate. That tends to be what he do. Yeah. So, we're gonna jump on back into this. We got Charlie Kirk. We got through the Q&A portion. Oh, no, that's the wrong thing. Wait a minute. There we go. Oh, good God. So we got Charlie Kirk here. He did his Q&A in which it was bad, where he's just basically spouting on a soapbox, spouting bullshit. The questions were actually pretty good. Like, they weren't, like, mean or really not what I would call antagonistic, but they're pretty straightforward questions, in my humble opinion. If you guys had any opinions about the questions, please let me know. Maybe put them in the comment section of yesterday's video. There is also a condensed version that's about 10 minutes long of my Jordan Peterson response or rebuttal, I guess, that will be out over on Debate Hub on Monday. So ideally, I'm going to be trying to make sure that Debate Hub, along with its live content, has at least one video coming out a week, and that video is on Monday. That discludes YouTube Shorts. For now, there should be YouTube Shorts coming out daily, except for Saturdays and Sundays, I think. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to check those out. Let's get into this. I don't think I have any like announcements or anything. Like tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about all this shit. There's been like a bunch of like things that have gone on in Canada, but a lot of them aren't like big enough to make up like a whole stream worth talking about. Like, it's not gonna take me an hour to talk about the Golden Dome and like the dumb shit around the Golden Dome. So we're gonna talk about the Golden Dome. We're gonna talk about the King's speech. We're gonna talk about what Carney said. We're gonna talk about how Polyev decided to shit his pants on a visitor visa to Parliament because what a fucking loser. But that'll be tomorrow. So if you are here and you are a lot of the time here for like anti-MAGA stuff and for Canadian politics stuff, tomorrow. But let's get into this. You guys can't hear that. Sorry, let's put this back. My bad. That was my mistake. I did not switch that around. There we go. All right.
Yeah, the one. Okay, thank you. Can we settle down, please? We're going to move on to our questions. Our first question is from Zinosha Zubair from Sydney, Sussex. Come up and ask a question.
Please tell me that the first person that they brought up is a brown woman wearing a hijab to talk to Charlie Kirk. That's perfect. I love that. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Fucking kick his ass.
Remember, you have the right of response.
I have quite a simple question for you. Now, I know you've debated Dean Withers on Jubilee before. I was wondering why you now refuse to engage with further debate with him.
Wait, hold on. First of all, he's coming on my show.
Wait. The glasses? I think they're just glasses of water.
Show this summer, and let me get this straight. I flew 5,000 miles across the world to have you ask why I'm not going to debate a left-wing YouTuber.
He's so mad! The first question, he's so mad right out the gate. Yeah, why don't you want to debate him again? Just be like, oh, well, you know, I wasn't really interested for a little while, but I'm going to be debating him in the summer. Like, he could have just answered like that. But no, he's an angry, petty little bitch boy. That's wonderful. That's so funny. Yeah, the faces in the audience, yeah.
Well, I mean, he continuously tries to get your attention at your campus.
Yeah, right. Yeah, again,
and you just ignore him.
I've debated him twice in the last calendar year. He's coming on my show this summer. Let me be clear. I came to Cambridge to have you ask me that.
I mean, you talk about freedom, and I'm just using my freedom.
Look, and he's just like fucking dropping his fucking microphone. Like, he's trying to be intimidating, and like the crowd is just like, wow, what an asshole. Like, he thinks he's just, it's so amusing to watch Charlie Kirk engage in a space where usually, like, he's in his safe space where he's going to be applauded for being a dick, right? Like people think that that's funny, and they're like, ha ha ha, yeah, be an asshole, that means you're winning. But, like, this is Cambridge, and they're just like, wow, what a douchebag.
Speech to ask you a simple question. You seem to be dodging it for some reason.
No, I've debated him twice in the last year, and he's coming on this summer for a long-form discussion. But
that's not the, wow, you actually had an answer that could have been a clear response, but now you undermined it by saying it's not even a debate that you're having him on for, it's a discussion. So you're So her question is, you just validated her question further, and you're still not answering it. Because I would have taken, oh, well, actually, it's not that I've been avoiding him. I've been kind of ignoring him, but that's mostly because I had other things to do. But I'm having him on in the summer to do a debate. But no, he's gotta be a dick. And then it throws his own fucking... What a moron.
This what I can expect?
Yeah, he's making videos about you avoiding him on your campus debates.
Right, so let me tell you how this works.
Now she specified campus debates.
I do a campus event, like at Texas A&M University.
So he's just being condescending, because of course he is.
I rent it out. I'm there for 3 hours. He shows up demanding to come up to the mic immediately, cutting in line of other students. It's not Joe Biden's America anymore where you can just cut in line and get whatever you want.
Oh?
So therefore...
the crowd's laughing at him.
I say, excuse me, Dean, we'll talk at another time. He makes this YouTube video as if I'm scared to debate him, even though I debated him twice in the last year. Does that sufficiently answer your question?
Yes.
No, it doesn't answer the question at all. That doesn't answer the question in the slightest. You're cherry picking an individual instance that you're framing in this way that may or may not even be accurate to the actual situation. All you're saying is that she's right, that you are dodging debating this guy.
Yes, it does.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It does answer the question, though. He's a coward.
Our next question is from James Loveridge from Anglo-Ruskin University.
So, firstly, thank you for coming here, Charlie. It's nice to meet you. So my question is, I am a Conservative, and I did back Trump in 2024, but I'm troubled that the GOP refuses to hold him accountable for his personal and legal failings. And how can we claim to stand for moral values and the Constitution while excusing behaviour that we condemn from the left? Isn't it the hypocrisy undermining our credibility, especially with the next generation?
Oh boy. If you remember during the Q&A yesterday, we covered Charlie trying to paint everybody in the room with a broad brush, saying that there's not anybody here that's a conservative. So the first person coming up saying like, hey, I'm a conservative and I supported Donald Trump, but what the fuck? This is a good question. All right, take your bets. How's Charlie gonna do?
What specifically do you have issue with?
Well, countless
He
things.
just said. What do you mean, what does he have issue with? He just fucking said what he had issue with. What do you mean? My brother in Christ. What? What specifically you have issue with? The hypocrisy? The accountability issues? The legal failings? How many things did he list? Hold on. Let me listen to this guy's question again. I'm gonna count.
Meet you. So my question is, I am a Conservative and I did back Trump in 2024, but I'm troubled that the GOP refuses to hold him accountable for his personal and legal failings. And how can we claim to stand for moral values and the Constitution while excusing behaviour that we condemn from the left? Isn't it the hypocrisy undermining our credibility, especially with the next generation?
Okay, so his issues specifically were hypocrisy, accountability, and personal and legal failings, and specifically accountability about this subsect. So he listed about 4 things. If you wanted to be more specific, you could also count that he's talking about credibility and morality, and bump that number to 6. But if I'm being generous, I would call that 4 things.
What specifically do you have issue with?
Well, countless things that he's done.
The what?
Stormy Daniels. You know, the bus interview that he put down to locker room talk. You know, his multiple legal values, filings.
He's a felon. He's a felon. He's a felon. He's a felon and convicted sexual predator.
Would you like to see them do? And you voted for this man. So, or,
No, I can't vote for him.
whatever. You said you voted or whatever. I don't know. Like,
You voted for him. No, I can't vote for him. Charlie, please. That's funny. That's funny. Good God.
the Americans, I don't know. You said you supported him, so
Yeah.
is that correct? Maybe I'm putting words in my mouth.
That's
You
correct.
supported
yeah,
him. Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm not.
He literally said that at the beginning, Charlie. Can you please fucking keep up? Jesus Christ, my guy.
saying that. I supported him on some of his policies and him, but a lot of conservatives, I'm not saying you personally, but a lot of conservatives refuse to call him out or critique him on anything and will ignore that straight away.
I mean, I critique him. He's a friend of mine. I might critique him. I don't think Canada should be the 51st state. We have enough liberals in America.
Okay, thank you.
That doesn't answer the question, dude.
Thank you.
Thank you, cheers.
We're just giving up? Bro, why are you giving up so early? He didn't answer anything. I could critique him. I don't think Canada should be the 51st state because I want to be more of a cult. Bro, one of the things that fucking kills me about the differences between Canada and American politics is that the Americans would shit their pants at Canadian liberals. Like, and frequently they do. This conservative guy is fumbling over himself, and Charles still can't keep up.
Our next question is from Kai Bevan at Trinity Hall.
Oh, careful, Charlie. Don't be mean to this guy. He's sitting right behind you. He's gonna bite your ass if you My Unfinished Journey for 666 says, Hail Nero and Chesh. It's not real hypocrisy unless it's from the the hypocrites region of France. Anything else is just sparkling bullshit. Very funny.
Right, so thank you for coming, Charlie. My question to you, I mean, I'm a medical student, and so I'm going to throw out the big A word. I know you get asked about it a lot, but I want to hear from you what your opinion is on abortion.
Life begins at conception.
That's not an opinion about abortion, asshole! That's just an opinion about when life begins. That's not an opinion about abortion! I don't know if it's because he's, like, so, like, scared that he's so defensive about just a question about his stance. Like, why is... doesn't answer the question. He's so salty. He's so salty. You know what? You want to know what? I think I know why. It's because during the Q&A, the audience was reacting to things that he said, and the audience laughed at him, and so he got defensive. And so he's already, like, I think he figured out, based on, like, the line of questioning, he noticed and has realized that he's not in America. And he's speaking to people who are far more educated, particularly educated in debate, than he is. And he's scared now. And he's not getting the reactions that he's used to getting, so he's very uncomfortable. Intrigue Feline says, also notice that he just does one-liners. Yeah, he tries to answer these complicated questions with like 1 or 2 word answers. Saying life begins at conception isn't an opinion about abortion. Even if you agree that life begins at conception, it's irrelevant.
About abortion specifically, why do you think abortion's wrong specifically?
Well, you agree murder is wrong?
I agree. Okay.
Murder is wrong by definition. Murder is wrong by definition. Murder is wrong by definition.
So this is where we get to the question, right? Because what is it about murder you say is wrong? Like, why is murder wrong?
Well, because it's a human being, not just because it has consciousness or because it's of a certain age, because it's a human.
What is it that
That's special pleading. That's just special pleading.
Human being this moral worth?
Not its consciousness necessarily.
I didn't say it's consciousness.
I know that I can imagine it's because it is a human.
I can imagine the argument that I want you to be making to make myself seem like I'm smarter instead of just strawmanning you.
Because that is a soul.
And what is this soul? Where does this come from? This idea that it's...
Exactly. I mean, again, the Greeks postulated that it is the entirety of your being. Okay, you guys can laugh. I mean, it's true. I mean, every civilization has had a different belief, but agreed upon ethical monotheism, which is the creed of the West and what the birth certificate of my country are.
It is not the creed of the West, asshole. You can keep saying that all you want. It is not the creed of the West. America is not supposed to be a theocracy. It was not set up by the founding fathers to be a theocracy of any kind, let alone Christian nationalism. It's going that direction and has been going that direction because of political punditry and because some people have an agenda, but that is not the way America was, that is not the foundations of America. And by the way, the West is not made up of only America, which is the way that fucking Charlie Kirk likes to frame it, as if the West equals America. It doesn't. The West is made up of a number of countries. In fact, if you were to just make the West, like if you were to draw an imaginary line on the Earth and you decide like this is East and this is West, East being like generally is considered like, you know, Asia, and then you have the West usually includes the UK, but even if you were going to like draw the line in the middle of the Atlantic and you were to say actually the East is the UK and the West is like America, there'll be the North American continent, and then you'd have the South American continent, which would mean that the West would include Brazil. So, surprise, surprise, guys. There's America and not America. Surprise!
Articulates is that every human being is more than just matter, it's more than just a clump of cells, but it also has...
Oh, really? And so how do you then justify that with birthright citizenship? How do you then justify that with that hypocrisy the conservative mentioned a minute ago? How do you justify taking a child with cancer and deporting them without any due process, without anything? Like, this is the thing. It's all hypocrisy.
Has an invisible element to you that will live beyond you.
Fine.
So what? Even if you accept that, that doesn't answer the question.
Fine, so... I mean, can you say that comes from the Bible, or where else do you get that from?
Ethical monotheism, which is the creed of the West. And again, the Declaration of Independence mentions God 4 times. The founders were explicitly believed, not in a secular morality, but a divinely given one, of at least this idea that there is a God and you are...
He might need to reread the Declaration of Independence, and maybe actually learn something about history. As we learned last time, he likes to cherry-pick history and likes to romanticize it, as opposed to actually educating himself and understanding history from a multitude of perspectives.
Not him, and let me ask you, what is the first stage of human development?
So the first, I mean, this is the thing, right? We can take it from...
So Pierce is saying something interesting in the chat, is saying, like, about the child, right, with cancer being deported. It says, because they entered illegally. How do you know they broke a law without due process? The answer is you don't. And if you cared about your Declaration of Independence and you cared about your Constitution, then you would care that it says any person in America gets due process. You can't have your cake and eat it too, my friend.
The sperm being generated in the father and the oocyte being generated in the mother, right? They fuse at birth, conception, sorry. The only thing that happens at conception is these 2 cells fuse.
No, DNA is created. A zygote...
DNA is not created.
A DNA... No, DNA coding at the zygote... Hold on, time out.
Okay, I'll let you finish.
Is it DNA is not created? That is not how it works.
Does a zygote have a unique marker?
Charlie,
does a zygote have a unique marker?
You have to let me speak. You have to...
But answer it, yes or no. Does a zygote have a unique marker?
Define a unique marker.
Meaning, can you differentiate the DNA coding between them?
Charlie is talking to a fucking medical student and he's just fucking embarrassing himself because he doesn't even understand what conception is physically. Oh, fucking brilliant.
Mother and the zygote, if you examine it under a deoxyribonucleic acid analysis, can you?
Only purely because the addition comes from the father.
Oh, so it is something different.
Charlie, DNA is not created.
No, it's not different. bad as fucking Jordan Peterson just fucking throwing words out there like they mean anything.
DNA is not created. You have, the father has his own genome, the mother has her own genome. They fuse. This is why you have the same characteristics, similar ones to your mother, similar ones to your father. That's why you have similar characteristics to your siblings. DNA is not created, right? So when you ask me, where does a human being come from? I can say to you, it starts at conception, but all conception is these two cells joining, right? But these two cells were created, the mother's cells were created long before, they were created when she was a fetus. So there's none of this DNA being produced, right? So we can't establish, the only thing that happens at conception is these two cells fuse. Now this idea that means that for some reason suddenly that moral worth comes in, but it wasn't there before when you had these two cells who had half the DNA. But suddenly there's a
Correct. Yes, something magical happens at that.
It's magic. I knew this man was gonna get absolutely rolled. When you're in a debate and you're debating a medical student and you show up and say, oh yeah, it's something magical. You're a joke. Especially when you want to use something magical happens, therefore women can just die for all we care. And you're gonna make laws that supersede people's bodily autonomy and people's rights because something magical. You know what? Lunatic is a good word for this. Yeah, this is lunacy. Jack Analysis for Two says, aborting an ectopic pregnancy is pro-life. Yeah. Can you imagine? Ooh! Could you imagine being in a place, in a state, making a law, right? And you're in like the House, or you're in a position of parliament, and you say, well, sorry women, but you have to, if you're an incubator, because something magical happens when a guy jizzes inside you. Sorry, family of the woman currently dead. We have to keep her body alive to potentially allow her body to continue on and carry this child to term that may or may not survive due to the state of your wife. Because something magical happened when somebody nutted. You'll remember that Charlie also said that he's not a scientist and doesn't know anything about this, which is why this guy being a medical student, like the audacity to try to tell the medical student something magical happens when the medical student is talking about the literal biological processes. You don't need a court case to determine if someone is a legal citizen. Oh, sir or madam, how do you do or make any determination about the law? It's okay, we'll wait. How do you make any determination about the law? I'll wait. It's okay, we'll wait. Life begins at the conception, so the sperm and the egg are dead. Listen. Desert Shield Vet says, I watched this and Kirk did not get rolled. The UK is so deluded and woke. The crowd cheered for cult of personality over academic fact. The UK is dead. Long live England Stan. And I find this a little bit amusing because what cult of personality? Because so far, none of these people, the only personality that's part of this conversation is Charlie. And he absolutely just threw 3 people in a row, just absolutely fucking rolled him. 3 of them in a row. He hasn't successfully answered a single fucking question. And his response to the medical student talking about what literally biologically happens is, it's magic. If you don't think that's getting fucking rolled, I don't know what to tell you. I think we might just disagree on the semantics about what counts as getting rolled. He was getting rolled by himself during the Q&A.
It's not magical, Charlie. We know about this.
Well, hold on.
Charlie.
Time out.
Yeah, see, they're laughing at him because he deserves to be mocked. He's absolutely ridiculous. And again, Charlie looks even more ridiculous when you take him out of his right-wing extremist cult-like ecosphere, right?
Hold on. Charlie, I promise you, I'm not trying to score points. I'm not trying to score points on you. This is genuine.
We call it the miracle of life for a reason. We've not been able to yet replicate.
There's no such thing as metaphor. No such thing. A miracle is a literal thing always, anytime anyone refers to a miracle ever. Language isn't malleable, everyone.
Human life development outside of the womb.
We call it the miracle of life.
I can't help but notice that Pierce was unable to answer my question, and that does not surprise me because every conservative, right-wing extremist that has come in here to even try has been completely incapable of conversation. Check off the list, guys.
Because yes, it's something beautiful, the ability to form a new...
Magical.
It's not... You say magical as in, oh, it's beautiful, it's an incredible thing that happens, of course. But it's not incredible in the sense we don't know what's going on. There's no new DNA coming out of nowhere.
Hold on, but time out. Isn't there a separate DNA, though, than the mother? Like...
Yes, from the father.
Okay, yes, but then... Father's DNA either. A new coding is created.
Charlie,
you are a blend of the two, and yours.
If I take blue and I take red and I make purple, did I invent a new color? No.
So when did your life begin?
Okay, so
when did your life begin?
Look, I like how he's trying to present like this philosophical, because somebody in the chat said the same thing, like literally word for word. When did your life begin? Tell me when life begins. Take a philosophy class. Take a philosophy class. Come back to me in a year. Take philosophy 101.
Again, this comes from what you define as where life starts. You can say life starts at conception, but I'm telling you, I believe that's just an arbitrary point, right? That's just the moment these two cells fuse. Now you say...
Yeah, it literally doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when you believe life begins, right? I think that's as far as I'm concerned, on a conversation about abortion, when you think life begins is irrelevant. It doesn't matter because we're talking about priorities. Charlie Kirk already explained in the Q&A why exactly abortion should be legal. He already elaborated on this. Now, he accidentally did that, but he explained exactly why abortion should be legal.
About this mother thing. So the way DNA is arranged in a cell is this arranged...
Yeah, it's magic. It's magic. Therefore, we should control women's bodies. Derp derp.
Chromosomes. Chromosomes are paired up, so you have one from the mother, one from the father, typically, in a healthy individual, right? Now, you can take those maternal chromosomes out, and you can find that this is who the person's mother is, and you can do the same with the father. Now, the reason you are different to your mother and father is because some of those chromosomes express genes that are different from each other, and so those genes interact, and that's what gives rise to you, right? But there's no space for any kind of moral framework to come into that until you consider that a human being is capable of consciousness and of suffering. But if you take that out of the equation, the fact that these two DNA, whatever they call molecules, right? These two DNA molecules are fusing, that does not suddenly flip a switch that attributes moral worth to that individual.
I mean, that's a good argument. So far, Charlie Kirk's answer has been magic.
I mean, I'm just saying, I'm not trying to score points.
Right, then, by what moral standard do you believe that?
I believe that if an individual is...
Bro, where is your life come from and what is your moral standard is so far beyond what Charlie Kirk is able is able to actually engage with because he's so fucking shallow. It's so weird. Like, he thinks that he's asking these gotcha questions that are, like, incredibly philosophically complicated, but, like, these are Cambridge students. They've taken philosophy. If I know the criterion, and I'm remembering correctly, Philosophy 101 is, like, a year 1 course. Like, it's part of, like, the courses you take in your first year. It's a buzzword question. It is. It's absolutely a buzzword question.
Is capable of suffering, then it's wrong. Now, can I explain my opinion on abortion, just so you can understand? I would agree.
He's not listening. Look, he looks away. Like, he doesn't care. Like, he doesn't want to understand anybody. He wants to preach. He wants to get clips. That's why he's answering, and he's trying to answer in, like, snappy, short things so he can farm clips for his outrage machine for YouTube, which is what we're going to look at next week. So, like, surprise, surprise. So here's Kick's got an interesting statement, all right? Life begins from the beginning, so it is murder. I'm assuming you mean abortion is murder. Please define murder for me real quick. Thank you.
Can I explain my opinion on abortion, just so you can understand? I would agree, as many reasonable people would, that at 9 months, it's unreasonable to expect someone to get an abortion, right? Unless you have some extreme circumstances. But for an elective abortion seems a bit radical to me. But it also seems radical to say that a woman who has just, the cells have just fused, to deny her of an abortion also seems wrong to me. Because that zygote is not capable of suffering, as far as we know.
So by what moral standard? Is that just your opinion? Where did you get
that? He already answered the moral standard. Good God, he literally answered first thing and then elaborated on his opinion about abortion. Could Charlie Kirk pay attention for fucking 30 seconds?
That moral standard from?
Because suffering is a bad thing. We all know suffering is a bad thing. That's an objective fact, right?
Well, hold on. So you do believe in objective morality?
I believe that suffering is...
No, that's not what he said. Something being an objective fact doesn't entail objective morality. Those are two different things.
Objectively negative.
So if you can't feel it, is it okay?
What do you mean if you can't?
You can't feel the
If you can't feel suffering, is suffering okay? No, if you can't feel suffering, the suffering doesn't exist. Oh no, he's too dumb. Body language cues, the student is far more confident and Charlie is not. Yeah, this guy is relatively relaxed. Like, he clearly has had this conversation. He's clearly, like, knows what he's talking about. It's almost like he's a medical student or something. And Charlie is obviously not. He's about to go into bad Christian apologetics theory. Yeah, he's doing the, yeah, but you only know this because God. And it's like, so what? So what if we did? This is a fundamental misunderstanding or a misrepresentation of the entire argument around abortion that particularly comes from right-wing extremist conservative, like Christian conservative nationals, right? They have this conversation as if it is a moral question of right or wrong, right? You might, sure, let's talk about abortion in a moral sense, right? But the question isn't about whether abortion is moral or immoral. It's about choosing one person suffering over another potential person suffering and the suffering of those around that person. So you then have to put some kind of like measuring system or some kind of like hierarchy to which thing, a priority, I should say. You have to put a priority on where's the priority, right? But that's a far more complicated and difficult thing to confront, which is why people like Charlie Kirk they can't, they're not capable, they're actually literally too fucking brain dead to do it. Like, it would be, I don't even know if someone were to like unalive Charlie Kirk if it would count as murder, because I'm pretty sure he's that brain dead at this point. So like, for example, the woman in is that in Mexico? Let me grab the story for you. No, that's gonna be the wrong thing. It was Georgia. Here we go. Let me pull this up for you real quick because it's gonna make the people doing the pro-abortion thing in the comment section really fucking uncomfortable. Fetus of brain-dead Georgia woman kept alive due to abortion ban is growing, says family. Hospital plans to keep Smith on life support until August when doctors will deliver baby via C-section. The fetus of a brain-dead Georgia woman who is being kept alive to carry out her pregnancy is continuing to grow. The woman's mother said late Monday, days after the controversial case exploded into national news and sparked questions about the ethics of using the state's anti-abortion law to keep a woman with no chance of recovery on life support. Quote, he has his toes, arms, limbs, everything is forming, quote, the woman's mother, April, told local news station 11 Alive. Quote, we're just hoping he makes it. The Georgia woman, Smith, went to the hospital on Friday, in February, with what she thought was an intense headache. Newkirk told 11 Alive, which first reported the story. At the time, Smith was about 8 weeks into her pregnancy. The hospital just discharged Smith after providing her with medication, Newkirk said. The same day, Smith was rushed back to the hospital after she woke up gasping for air. The hospital diagnosed her with blood clots in the brain, and within hours, she was declared brain dead. Under Georgia law, abortion is banned after about 6 weeks of pregnancy, which is absurd, but whatever. That ban also, it's not practical, I should say. The ban also contains provisions that strengthen the concept of fetal personhood, a doctrine that holds that embryos and fetuses should be considered people and, as such, are entitled to full legal rights and protections, which is interesting because of what I talked about yesterday, so feel free to go watch yesterday's if you want to see my elaboration on that, but I'll probably turn that into a shorter video that you can go watch on Debate Hub Official later. Newkirk said doctors told the family the law requires keeping her alive to preserve the pregnancy. Well, keep her body alive, not her. She's already brain dead. Quote, we didn't have a choice or a say about it, Newkirk said. We want the baby, that's part of my daughter, but this decision should have been left to us, not the state. The government is stepping in on medical decisions to be made by individuals and their significant others or their next of kin and taking those choices away from you. That is less freedom, that is less choice, that is less rights for everybody involved. Not just for the woman who is now brain dead, and not just and for her mother and her immediate family members, but for the man as well, her significant other. He's not allowed to make that decision either. So if this does not, give you pause to maybe think about this and the amount of suffering that is already happening and will continue to happen, and there will just be more and more and more women's bodies being treated like literal incubators without their consent, I don't know what to tell you. You should think about it, at the very least. You don't have to come to a conclusion right now, but you should think about it. This isn't hyperbole. These are literal things that are happening. There are women bleeding out in parking lots because they can't get medical care. And again, if you want to hear my point and what Charlie Kirk accidentally admitted to, about the problem with treating a fetus as a human with all of those rights, it means you're treating that woman as less of a human. That would be the requirement.
Pain, is it okay to inflict the pain?
In the sense that if no one's suffering from it, if you have...
Sorry, I'll put this back. This was Charlie Kirk saying something really fucking dumb about if you can't feel suffering, does that make the suffering okay? It just means no, that means there is no suffering. That's really fucking dumb anyway.
Negative.
So if you can't feel it, is it okay?
What do you mean if you can't?
You can't feel the pain, is it okay to inflict the pain?
In the sense that if no one's suffering from it, if you have a scenario where nobody is suffering from something, then yes, of course. There's no
Then there's no suffering. So that the question, it's almost like his question is so malformed, it should probably be aborted.
A moral something is only a moral question if it affects someone's well-being.
Oh, so let me just make sure.
Right! Exactly! It's only a matter of morality if it affects someone's well-being. Get absolutely rolled, Charlie. Good God, you brainlet.
Understand this correctly. That if it doesn't affect their well-being, so dementia patients that don't know who they are or where they're from, can we execute dementia patients because they're confused?
What? Brother! I'm sorry, I didn't realize dementia patients were brain dead and couldn't feel anything. And had no sense of fucking, like, feeling in their body at all. That is not- you literally- What? That is so incredibly nonsensical. Woman in the US got arrested for having a miscarriage. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Confused about their well-being?
Can you imagine a scenario?
Or Alzheimer's?
Yes, I'm very angry. My laugh is very fake. You can tell.
Charlie,
Alzheimer's patients don't really know much about anything.
Are you gonna transvestigate me too while you're at it, Carson?
can you imagine a scenario?
Or Alzheimer's patients.
Charlie,
Alzheimer's patients don't really know much about anything. Can we?
Dude, that is handedly not true. That is not remotely close to a fact. God, what an asshole! Could you what about? But what if they're really, really old though? Like, this is coming from the same, this is Charlie Kirk. This is coming from the same group of people that were like, it's okay, old people can die for the sake of the economy for COVID, right? Like, killing the innocent. Okay, so Kick finally got back. Kick finally got back, right? And I asked them to define murder, and they said killing the innocent. Okay, so there's a couple problems with that. Especially if you're approaching this from a religious standpoint, as Charlie Kirk is, right? He's coming at this from this conversation, or from this worldview of Christianity, which means the only person that could possibly ever be murdered by your criteria would be Jesus, right? Jesus is the only innocent person, because nobody is a person, because everybody is a sinner. So there is no innocent person, therefore you could have no murder, right? A more accurate definition of murder would be, or is, the actual definition, which is the unjustified killing of someone. So, I hope no one in Charlie's family relies on him to make medical decisions for them. Yeah, right? So, if something is to be defined as murder, you have to make sure that it is unjustified. And as I just went on a explanation about, you have to explain why abortion would be the unjustified killing. Right?
Schedule them for execution because they can't technically suffer.
Now respond. So, can you imagine a scenario where we lived in a society where we killed people when they suffered from dementia, were incapable?
No, there are premeditative killings by people on people that are not unjustified. That they are justified, right? That's a fact. So that doesn't work as a definition for murder.
Suffering, and we killed them, right? It's not a scenario that involves. Can you imagine a scenario where we lived in a society where we killed people when they suffered from dementia, were incapable of suffering, and we killed them, right? It's not a scenario that involves an absence of suffering. There's still suffering involved. Right.
It's more complicated than that. It's not an individual to individual scenario. When you remove somebody from society by killing them, you are affecting a sphere of people. You're not just only affecting that individual.
Imagine you grow up thinking, my dad could be killed at any moment because he's going to get dementia. Imagine living your life thinking, I could get dementia and suddenly I'd be killed by my state.
Imagine a world where you slaughter 1 million babies every year in America.
Charlie, it's not slaughter. That's the problem.
Hold on. If it's a forcible removal from the umbilical cord of another human life, again, we have clarity but not agreement. Biologically, you know that your entire coding began at conception. Your coding,
No, that's
your
what,
uniqueness.
That's what I'm denying. I disagree with that.
Okay, when those two cells fused together, to use your terminology,
yes,
that is where the process of human
accepted terminology.
In the interest of time, can we bring this question to a
the
close?
process of human development objectively begins at that moment. Therefore, those human beings.
But it doesn't objectively begin at that moment. You think it does. You believe it does. That is not the consensus. Not everybody believes that. That's why this is a waste of time. This isn't. They're not even talking about abortion anymore, or the nature or practicality of it. They are simply arguing or discussing about when life begins. And Charlie's answer is, it's magic. That's it. That was his only answer. From then on, he's only been trying to poke holes in what this other person said, which, by the way, doesn't answer the original question. Charlie has just been dodging the question the entire time. The question was, what is your opinion about abortion? Let's discuss that. And Charlie grifted it into a discussion about when life begins and objective morality, as if it was relevant at all to the fucking initial question. My Unfinished Journey for 5 says, I took care of my dad the last 2.5 years before he died of Alzheimer's. Charlie disgusts me and pisses me off. That is fair. He is disgusting and says things that are very, like, horrible, actually. Like very just awful.
Are deserving of human rights. We keep going, or do you want to?
No, thank you. Yeah, you can finish.
The process of development begins from the moment the sperm is being generated.
He's such an asshole.
Father, the moment the eggs are being generated in the mother. To say that suddenly the moral worth switches on when they fuse doesn't make any sense. That's just a point you've taken.
It makes perfect sense, because that is when your journey as a human being, when the sperm and egg were separate.
Oh yeah, you remember your time, your journey begins? 'Cause magic. It's 'cause magic. His only answer is 'cause magic.
Not yet a fused human being. You were not created uniquely.
DNA existed.
An image.
Carson saying life starts at conception, that's a scientific fact, is inherently not a scientific fact. There's not a full consensus from science. There is, like, a lot of people who think that, some of which are scientists, but that is not a consensus in science. Now we have a journey. Yeah, we got our human journey going on.
DNA existed. I thought.
Well, no, the parts of your DNA.
Knucklehead says Charlie has talked ad nauseum about abortion. Why hasn't he addressed the question? I don't know. You would think this would have been like a softball question for him, but I think it's because he's uncomfortable in where he is. Because he's so defensive right now and has been since he hit the floor, that he doesn't want to answer any question because he knows he's not up to the task of dealing with actually, like, he's not an honest interlocutor. At the short answer.
DNA existed. Your DNA did not exist. It's like saying that we have a full car just because we have all the parts. It was not yet put together until conception happens and the zygote was formed. Thank you. I think we have to get.
Can we move on to the next
question,
please? Thank you.
Now, that guy did a really good job. Yeah, conservatives like to do this stupid thing where they try to say life to car, because guess what? The car's not alive either. So, like, that's not a really good fucking analogy.
So, thank you. Our fourth question tonight is from Rudy Ellis.
I mean, the definition of life in medical science and biology is also a messy. It's not a one-to-one. It's not alive and not alive. The more you read, the more you educate yourself on biology, the more you educate yourself about, like, the different kinds of life that exist, you will find out that life is not a alive or dead scenario. It's not that simple. That's, like, at best, if you were to give, like, the things that are required to define life, you're gonna get, like, a grade 9 science answer. Maybe. But it's far more complicated than that. Like, there are things in biology that are studied that are like, is this alive? Is this not alive? Are viruses alive? They do things.
Jones from Emmanuel College.
Hello, thank you for coming to today's talk. So my question, as someone studying archaeology and biological anthropology, I've learned that moral codes and social norms have always been fluid, shaped by time, culture, power. So
yeah, it's simply just the conservative mindset, the conservative dogma, the conservative ideology, particularly with this right-wing extremists of wanting to paint everything in simple black and white terms and completely just painting and brushing over things that are incredibly complicated and nuanced, and they use their ignorance to justify it. Well, I think this about conception, therefore. And it's like, no. It's like, well, it's simple to me and I understand it, therefore it must be right. And it's like, that is not how it works. Some things are very non-intuitive. And some things don't really make sense if you don't know enough about them. Right? And sometimes the more you know about something, the less you understand it.
Ancient and recent societies embrace same-sex...
Oh, Knucklehead was saying, no, I mean, what do I mean? What the fuck do you mean that he hasn't talked about it? In the video, he hasn't answered the question. I'm not talking about him in general. I'm talking about he didn't answer the question.
Relationships, and even the idea of third genders, well before Western conservatism even existed. So when you claim that modern conservative values represent some kind of universal, objective moral truth, like you said on your chair over there, aren't you just defending a selective, historically recent ideology that erases most of human history and targets people who have always been part of it?
That's a really good question. That's a really good fucking question. And we'll hear him not answer the question and dodge it right after these messages. if you can't imagine a single scenario in which abortion would be justified or that the killing of someone would be justified, it just tells me that you're shallow in your thinking and you don't know how to discuss morals, because morals are incredibly complicated, especially philosophically.
No, but can you point to me of a...
Sorry, we got a super chat. Let me look at this real quick. Sar for 5 said, if I premeditate to die someone who's been abusing me for years, that's self-defense, not murder. Also, other dude wouldn't ask me what I think again. Oh man, listen, every time, it's very consistent. The conservatives that come in here with a lot of bluster, and they make a lot of assumptions because they have to make those assumptions to justify their behavior. You'll notice how rude and how fallacious most of their attempts to engage are, is because they're not honest. They're not honest interlocutors, because they never are honest interlocutors. Or the harlequin type. Yeah, no, I'm not gonna go over it again here. We've talked about it before. That'll get us too distracted. If you want to hear more about that, you can go and look at some of the videos I've already done discussing abortion. You can look at conservative talking points that I've already covered. So, regardless, the question, just to wrap up the question of abortion, the question of abortion is not a moral question about whether or not you are unaliving one individual. Whether or not you are killing one individual, whether you want to consider it murder or not, that's fine. You can call it murder if you want. Say it's the unjustified killing. But you understand that it is actually a moral question about which life do you prioritize. Right? So let's agree. I'm fine with taking the point or the belief. I don't personally believe it, but I'm fine with the people believing that life begins at conception. I don't agree that it's a fact or a scientific consensus. But I don't think that matters. Not to the question of abortion. If life begins at conception, and we accept that, and we accept that abortion is killing, is unaliving somebody, right? Unaliving a person, right? Then the question is about which life do you prioritize? Do you prioritize the life of the conception? Or do you prioritize the life of the already living and enjoying life individual? This potential life that may or may not make it to term, and that may or may not have a good life after they are born, because those circumstances need to be considered, versus the life of the person who that now is obligated to carry this other life that they are not necessarily agreeing to, and that may kill them, and that they are then going to be responsible for the next 18 years of their life, etc., etc., etc. This is a sacrifice. So you need to decide which one do you prioritize. And this is the problem about making abortion illegal. Who are you to make that decision for other people? And who is the government to make that decision for other people? And the answer is you don't have the right to do that. And you can't justify a right to do that, to make that decision for other people. Good luck. That's the actual conversation that is being engaged in when you're talking about abortion. Anything less than that is a red herring. So let's go back and hear what this guy had to say. Moving on.
My question, as someone studying archaeology and biological anthropology, I've learned that moral codes and social norms have always been fluid, shaped by time, culture, power. So many ancient and recent societies embrace same-sex relationships and even the idea of third genders well before Western conservatism even existed. So when you claim that modern conservative values represent some kind of universal...
No, knucklehead, that's just whataboutism. Stick on the topic.
Objective moral truth, like you said on your chair over there, aren't you just defending a select...
Nobody's talking about pronouns right now. So if you can't justify it, and you can't argue it, and you can't address the actual topic, and you have to do whataboutism, the fallacy, to even make an attempt, sorry.
Historically recent ideology that erases most of human history and targets people who have always been part of it.
No, but can you point to me of a... And maybe you can educate me. Can you point to me a great power that endorsed same-sex marriage? Not cohabitation, but marriage.
Ancient Mesopotamia.
As marriage. As recognized.
As marriage, it exists.
Recognized by the state.
100%.
And how did that work out for them?
It worked out perfectly fine. It was an accepted norm of society.
Okay, I still think it's wrong.
Okay. Swift.
Absolutely fucking rolled. Absolutely fucking rolled. Good God, Charlie. So oh, fine, I just think it's wrong. Okay, I just think it's wrong isn't a reasoned argument. That's you making laws and making assertion based off of vibes.
Moving on, so you said it was based on scripture and you believe that there are moral, objective, universal truths.
Yes, there are.
So
murder is wrong today and murder was wrong 2,000 years ago.
Right, okay, fair. That's not same sex, but fair. I see your point. But
there are moral truths that are transcendent.
And you've got Charlie shifting the goalposts. He's shifting the goalpost and trying to redirect the conversation to try to apply it to murder when that's not what the conversation is fucking about.
Of time, place, and matter.
Okay, but so just to clarify, you believe that...
Hey, Carson, I'm just curious. Is all the laughing that the Cambridge students are doing at Charlie Kirk also fake? I'm just curious. I'm curious about your assessment. Do you mind letting me know?
This is in the Bible. This is laid out in the Bible that man shall not sleep with man, and so therefore...
Well, it's also repeated throughout the New Testament as well. In the book of Matthew, Jesus reaffirms the biblical standard for marriage.
Okay, so I'm going to make two very, very quick...
He doesn't repeat it whatever. It's fine.
Points. So the first, so if we look at the Old Testament in isolation, just to start off with as an example, so let's look at Exodus 35:2, which suggests that if you work on the Sabbath, you should be put to death. If you look at Leviticus 11:7, it suggests that if you have pork, you should be put to death. Let me finish, I'll be done. If you plant two crops side by side...
Oh, I like this guy. He's good.
You should be stoned by your entire village. If you wear a suit, which you are wearing now, that contains two different fibers intertwined into the same jacket, you should be burned at the stake by your own mother. Now, following that rationale, in Leviticus 18:22, when it states that man shall not sleep with man, why aren't we burning ourselves at the stake as well? Why aren't we stoning ourselves to death?
Do you care to address my...
Classic rebuttal.
Do you care to address my main contention that Christ affirmed biblical marriage in the book of Matthew? And can you tell me the difference between the ceremonial...
So he's not gonna answer the fucking question. Charlie Kirk is not... It's been fucking almost 45 minutes. And he has only answered one question so far, and I believe it was during the Q&A, and it wasn't even a good answer. It was only an answer by technicality. Fucking 45 minutes! I don't think you could get more rolled than not successfully answering a question in 45 minutes. Oh, he will? He will answer a question? How much longer do I have to wait? This is like telling me, oh, don't worry, Final Fantasy 13 gets good when the world opens up. Oh, cool, how long does it take for the world to open up? 15 hours? I gotta play through 15 hours of horse shit before I get to the good part of the game is not a point in that game's favor. Same as if it takes longer than 45 minutes for Charlie Kirk to answer a singular question, that is not a point in Charlie Kirk's favor.
Moral and...
Yes, and you're right, Letty, it's whataboutism.
The ritual law, and then finally, also, tell me about Christianity, the difference between the new and the old covenant, or are you just going to cherry pick certain verses of ancient Israel that do not apply to new Christianity?
No, fair, I completely agree. So we'll look at 2 points then. So firstly, if we look at the Old Testament.
So he can't deal with the Old Testament as it is, so this guy was already ready to go.
We can see the kind of inconsistencies there. We've already touched upon that, right? That makes sense. Second,
Kick, I can't keep pausing before he gets there if he never gets there.
he mentioned the point of Jesus and Christ. He never mentioned anything to do with homosexuality at all.
Well, hold on a
Or in
second.
the Bible.
No, he affirmed biblical marriage as one man and one woman. He said
Marriage and having sex aren't the same thing, Charlie. I don't know if you're aware of this. You can have sex outside of marriage, and you can have sex within marriage, and within marriage you can have sex with other people. That might be right, that might be wrong, based on biblical standards, but it can in fact happen. So, by that logic, gay people are fine to have sex as long as they're not married. Womp womp.
well, hold on a
Or in
second.
the
No,
Bible.
he affirmed biblical marriage as one man and one woman. He said a man shall leave his
Romans,
father's
right?
house.
In the New Testament.
No, in Matthew, that is not correct. I believe
In the New Testament.
In the New Testament, well, Romans.
In the New Testament. No, in Matthew. I'm sorry, is Matthew not in the New Testament all of a sudden, Charlie? I'm gonna go ahead and give that like he just flubbed that because he's too defensive and he's too riled up. So because he's too riled up, he's just assuming everything that the other person is saying is wrong. Which is, you know, not the way you engage honestly in debate and discussion. But, you know, who's gonna put it past Charlie? Who's ever gonna accuse Charlie of being an honest interlocutor? Sorry, I'll put that one back.
He affirmed biblical marriage as one man and one woman. He said a man shall leave his
Romans,
father's
right?
house.
In the New Testament.
No, in Matthew, that is not correct. I believe
In the New Testament.
In the New Testament, well, Romans is also in the New Testament. Secondly, in Romans 1, the Apostle Paul talks negatively about homosexuality explicitly. Also, homosexuality is repeated in the book of Titus and in the book of Jude as not being favorable, as the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Not even talking about the Old Testament verses. There are 3 types of the 613 Levitical laws, and you know, of course, in your own way.
So, the Cokes wants to address something. They said, in the new covenant, we are under the moral law, but not the civil or ceremonial law. How do you square that idea with Jesus coming and saying, I'm not here to take down the old laws? I'm just curious about your thoughts on that.
Cherry pick some of them.
Which again has to already assume that we have any obligation to follow any of those laws in the first place. Which I would say would not fall under a free society. Separation, that would also be against the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence when it comes to the separation of church and state. Because, especially when you start imposing, which is what Charlie wants to do, imposing his biblical view and his biblical interpretation on everyone else, regardless of whatever they believe, and he wants to write laws of governance about these things. So how do you square that? And I don't think you do. Not without becoming a theocracy. So if you're going to, at least if you're going to push for and have the agenda of creating a theocracy, don't lie to people and pretend that you're not, because the only reason you're lying to people is because you know it's non-constitutional.
Favorable as the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Not even talking about the Old Testament verses. There are 3 types of the 613 Levitical laws, and you know, of course, in your own way, cherry pick some of them. We do not.
That's not what cherry picking was. That was examples to make a greater argument, which Charlie tried to sideline. But you know, it doesn't surprise me that Charlie wants to like throw ad homs in there. It's because he's projecting.
Live under the ceremonial, we do not live under the ritual, but we do live under the moral. There's only 10 of the moral that we as Christians believe we're bound to. Some believe 9, which of course is the Decalogue. And so none of those that you mentioned we as Christians believe that we live under. However, we do look at what Christ articulates.
We believe. Okay, but how do you know you're right? Did God tell you that you don't have to follow these rules anymore? Because that's not what Jesus said. He brought a new covenant and then turned around and said, but this doesn't negate the old one. So, it's awfully convenient that Charlie is allowed to pick and choose whatever parts of the Bible he feels like he wants to follow.
Articulated as the biblical standard of marriage. And we can also look to church tradition for this as well. And the church has had a tradition for well over 2,000 years. Even myself as a Protestant acknowledges that tradition is marriage between one man and one woman.
But that tradition isn't the only one that exists around the world. China exists, guys. China has existed and has written fucking script fucking older than fucking... My brother in Christ, the main reason that the church did marriage was because it was a government thing. And at the time, the church was the government. The church and the government used to be the same thing. That's why there's a fucking deal between fucking the separation of church and state and the acknowledgement of it. Charlie literally cannot survive under a critical analysis. No, he can't. No, he crumbles. He melts like the Wicked Witch of the West, screeching and pissing his pants.
And fair point, but okay.
It's okay, Knucklehead. It's okay. It's okay. As long as your name checks out.
Say we put aside the Old Testament for now. We'll put that aside and the inconsistencies there, and we'll look purely at the New Testament, following your rationale. Okay?
Does he realize that actually Charlie just burned his entire fucking argument to the ground by him pointing out that the Bible is inconsistent inside of itself? Like, that completely undermines his entire fucking foundational point. Like, his foundational argument. This man baited him into completely undermining his entire fucking position. Remember when I said he was absolutely rolled? Charlie Kirk was absolutely rolled as soon as he stepped into an academic sphere. He stepped outside of his own fucking bubble that is proud of how fucking stupid they are, as you can see from some of the chat. Proud of their fucking ignorance. Wave it around like it's their fucking dick and it's made out of gold and spews diamonds. Steps out of that sphere and he looks like an absolute chode all of a sudden. He looks like Stormy Daniels' description of Donald Trump's dick. It's so fucking funny.
Okay? Now, when you say that Christ lays specifically, and the New Testament states specifically that man shall not sleep with man, I'd like to point out a linguistic error on that point.
I did not say that. I said the biblical marriage was affirmed, and then Romans 1 did talk negatively about the action of homosexuality.
But ultimately, that affirmation comes from 8 lines in there that suggest that man shall not sleep with man.
Yes, of course, yes. The Old Testament and New Testament harmonize one another, but Christ brought it to
Oh my god, Charlie, let him finish his question.
Different level, a different covenant, and a different moral teaching. It wasn't just enough to say that you shall, man shall strike eye for eye, so that you shall turn the other cheek, that you shall love your enemy. Christ's moral standard was much more even elevated than that of the Israelites and the Hebrews.
Well, I'm going to ask you who's by.
Question for chat real quick. Charlie Kirk just explained, or just said, probably without realizing, that the Bible is internally inconsistent. If the Bible is internally inconsistent, chat, could you please tell me, why should we use it to write laws? If it's up to interpretation, and it is internally inconsistent, why would we use it for governance, and why would we force it on people through government?
Bible. Okay, now your Bible that you use currently is written in the English language, right? Correct?
Yeah, the King James Version, yes, thanks to Tyndale.
Yeah, well, exactly, it's written in the English language, which in itself is only, say, 500,000.
Ah, yes, classic. What is considered, by scholars, the worst translation.
500 years old. Now, but the Christianity in itself, say, is 2,000 years old, or even older, yeah? Correct? Now, which means that the Bible was originally written not in English, but in ancient
Koine Greek.
Huh?
In Koine Greek.
Yeah, correct. Now, if we look at the Greek terminology of man...
Yes, and Jesus spoke Aramaic. You could translate things, you acknowledge that.
Well, we translate things, but translations are linguistically ambiguous. As a former classicist, I know that language can't be translated directly. So, for example, if we look at the translation of certain words into man... So I've got 2 words here. So I've got malakoi.
So that's correct. You can't. Some words you can. You can't translate things directly like that. Language doesn't work that way. NIV is the woke Bible. Tell you what, Cokes, go to Dapper's channel and go talk about the KJV. Let me know how that goes. One thing as well that you need to point out, that even if you take the Bible as being divinely inspired by its original authors, whoever they may be, and whoever you happen to believe they are, it still has to be translated by a human. So you have to overcome that also. So you also have to take in the context at the time and how the context at the time would inform the authors in their descriptions and understandings. Those are all relevant pieces of information. So even if you say the Bible is divinely inspired, most of the time, as per what's written in the Bible, the authors say that an angel told them something. Now, we also know, according to the Bible, the angels are not infallible, right? We can all agree that the Bible says that the angels are not infallible. So we don't know how many angels the message went through before they got to a person. But even if we assume the lowest number and assume it's 1, and God told one angel to go to one person and tell them this thing, we have 1, 2, then this person writing it down for 3. Minimum. That is a minimum number. There's, in fact, less options for that when you get to the New Testament. When you get to the New Testament, you are talking about somebody writing on behalf of somebody else who is like, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 before you get to a scripture, for example. The closest one you have are like Paul's letters, and Paul's letters were not divinely inspired. There's no claim in Paul's letters that they were divinely inspired, right? It is Paul writing to the church, right? So you've got this issue where if the angels are not infallible and people are obviously fallible, the Bible has already gone through at least 2 degrees of separation from God minimum, and that is before you even start translating it. Right? And this is assuming that the authors were the original authors and there was no oral telling between point A, point B, and point C. Right? So, because we're talking about like a time period where oral tradition was incredibly common. So, but even if we remove that, you're still talking about degrees of separation here, where you have to assume that there are changes and potentially errors.
Which means essentially soft, which isn't necessarily directly saying a gay man. And then we've got oh God, how do I say that? Arsena koitai, which essentially means prostitutes. Now, if we look at things linguistically, we can pick apart the Bible and say that actually it wasn't saying man shall not sleep with man, it's saying man shall not sleep with prostitutes, which is an entirely different linguistic thing.
I'm not even getting into Leviticus, though.
But no,
my contention is completely New Testament focused. So,
this isn't Leviticus.
Well, but you said man shall not speak of the man. So you're talking about Romans.
Well, okay, these words are used throughout the
Right, well, actually, in Romans 1, it was actually women sleeping with women. So you got your verses wrong. In Romans 1, Paul is prophesying about the end of the world, and he's saying that in the end times, woman will like with woman like, and man will, I think it might say man will like, man like. You have to get the verses specifically. But it is agreed upon, and you can agree. This is why tradition is important, and I even say this as a Protestant, is that we
agreed upon. Very few things in the Bible by scholars are agreed upon when it comes to verse interpretation, because here's the thing, Charlie Kirk is trying to distill things down. Right? Charlie Kirk is trying to distill things down because he needs everything to exist within a bubble and then only exist within the bubble in which he is presenting with. Because as soon as this guy starts adding context to things and starts saying, well, this, and this, well, you start running into problems. Because of course you start running into problems. It only makes sense that you start running into problems. So, surprise, surprise.
We believe that scripture is very important, but also look to tradition. Church tradition has had an unbroken chain affirming matrimony. Holy matrimony being one man, one woman. One, even as a non-Catholic, I'm glad that Pope Leo has reaffirmed in the last couple of days. And so I'm not even sure your contention, your point. Are you saying that the Bible doesn't affirm marriage as one man, one woman? Or are you saying church tradition doesn't affirm?
He isn't saying anything about church tradition, Charlie. Stop trying to straw man people.
Marriage, one man,
the
woman.
Bible doesn't affirm.
Okay,
But clearly doesn't affirm.
That is complete nonsense.
But it's not. It's a linguistic error. And it's debated.
But Christ our Lord, which is the standard, he affirms this idea that you will leave your father's home. Going back to Genesis 12 and this idea of Abraham leaving his father's home.
Oh, so now suddenly the New Testament applies the Old Testament? I thought Charlie was only taking the New Testament and the New Testament without the Old Testament. And he just used the Old Testament as a Jesus reference, a reference that Jesus was making. Charlie, keep it together, you dumb motherfucker. You can't say everyone, nobody else is allowed to make reference to the Old Testament and the New Testament except for me. When I do it, it's okay. When other people do it, it's not fair. Okay, sure. Fine, asshole. Oops. I'm assuming he didn't mean to actually undercut himself at the knees there.
You will cleave to your wife. It'll be called one. In fact, this idea of a new creation, which is something that is then used by the Apostle Paul to describe the Church of Christ and the bride of the church.
The fuck does this have to do with being gay? Which was the fucking question.
The church being the bride of Christ with Jesus. So I'm not even sure your contention. It is.
Yeah, but you're just avoiding my point. I'm saying the Bible that we have today is 100% a translation, and a translation
I acknowledge that.
Ambiguous.
And well, hold on. But what about specifically in Matthew or in the book of Romans? But in order for you to be correct, you mean the church fathers translated it wrong when they were within like 50 years of this?
It doesn't even necessarily have to be wrong. All it has to be is a translation. Again, we're back to the same problem. These fucking right-wing extremist nationalists want to paint everything with a broad brush that is either true or false. And that's the thing. They could be right in their translation, but still get it wrong. Like, it doesn't work like that.
In order for your contention to be correct, you have to say that.
And yes, also, it's whataboutism again. He's trying to cherry pick specific examples to avoid the point because he can't answer the question.
The early church fathers that wrote the early letters to the church, they were translating it wrong, and the tradition they established was wrong. So by then we can lean on tradition and scripture. So when you get tradition plus scripture, you get something that is authentic, that is real, and that is verifiable.
I've already highlighted.
Hey, do you think Charlie Kirk acknowledges that there's abortion in the Bible? And it was mandated by the church? It was the priests? You want me to make a poll? You guys want me to make a poll? Do you think that Charlie Kirk even realizes that? Cuz like if you want to, you could by that logic you could use the Bible to justify abortion. Tradition with scripture equals authentic, real, and verifiable. How? Yeah, no, you're right. That's a tell, Elmo. Let's get Elmo in here.
The tradition does not align with scripture. We've gone back thousands of years to ancient Mesopotamia.
But understand, but at the time, they all spoke Greek, they wrote Greek, and they spoke Aramaic. So, for example, when they were writing the early Gospels, the synoptic Gospels of Matthew, Mark...
Like, humans are fallible, though. They can just make mistakes, and that's not an unreasonable claim, Charlie. The Bible has never been corrupted and changed by politicians and regular people. They were all 100% Holy Spirit-inspired saints because of reasons. That's a really good point, right? So, like, for example, if you look at the forming of the Bible, because the Bible didn't, like, just get shit out of the sky, right? It's a collection of writings that were put together and compiled by a council, right? And so, like, that council could also be making errors. So even if the translation is correct, this council chose what to and not to include in the Bible. That's why there are scriptures that are kept in the Vatican that nobody's allowed to look at. So you already there's so many issues with the Bible in these contexts. Hell, even like fucking Jesus's own hand-picked apostles, one of them was a fucking traitor, and Peter fucking kept like waffling. So like you have people that even in Jesus's hand-picked group were getting shit wrong and being wrong and bad, somehow special plead in this case, which is what this is. It's mostly special pleading.
Luke, they were obviously writing in Greek. They knew that language. So in Matthew, when they were writing Greek, and then the early...
Do you guys think that Charlie Kirk actually believes that people literally named Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John wrote the Bible, and they were literally like these ancient Hebrew people were actually named Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? I like how somebody I like that Coxes is trying to save me from Jesus when, I mean, I might believe in Jesus. I could believe the entire Christian faith and still think Charlie Kirk is wrong and an asshole. Like, it's not, I don't have to be religious or non-religious to realize that Charlie Kirk is a false prophet.
Early church fathers knew Greek and adopted that as church tradition. We have a 2,000 unbroken chain. I think you would irrefutably say that it was the teachings of Christ for one man and one woman, because the church tradition has been unbroken for 2,000 years, and they derived it from scripture of that original language.
You can't argue that. That makes sense. I mean, if we agree to disagree, then why don't we look at biology?
So you know better than the church fathers?
No, I don't. I'm not saying I know better than the church fathers. What I'm saying is, linguistically, there is undeniably an error. Regardless of what you say, that is
our lens, maybe, but not from the people when they were making these traditions.
I agree. They may have got that right, but
what? From our lens, we aren't infallible, but those people definitely were infallible. Oh, okay.
That may not have been their original meaning.
What does he mean unbroken? He means to say that the church was consistently doing these things across the board the whole time, which is obviously just not the case. It just means that Charlie Kirk is making an assertion that he can't back up because he doesn't actually know anything about the history of the church, which is ironic because he is literally a Protestant. He literally just called himself as a Protestant. So, you know, it's almost like he's talking out of his ass.
They're saying is the meaning has been warped over time because societal and cultural context, such as the British Empire.
Can we start bring this question to a close, please?
It can be, but that is why tradition matters, because the tradition, they understand.
The tradition doesn't solve the problem when the tradition has changed, and this guy is literally saying that the words and the traditions have changed. Therefore, you cannot rely on it in the way that Charlie Kirk is trying to rely on it. It's absurd. And so, yeah, this Charlie got rolled again. We're 4 for 4. That's 4, right? The lady wearing the hijab, the medical scientist that came up, this guy. Oh, maybe we're 3 for 3. Hold on, let me look. This guy. I feel like there was a short one. This guy. And that lady. Okay, so we're 3 for 3.
Context.
Tradition is context dependent.
Well, yes and no, because of course.
Yes.
Is,
what do you mean yes and no? I thought things could only be true or false, or black and white, or right or wrong. Tradition. Glenda says no, it hasn't changed. No, nothing in the Bible, nothing about perception, nothing about things have changed. Please tell me more about the change that the divine revelation that the Pope had that changed the classification of an animal to allow people to eat it during a famine. Please go tell me about that. Please tell me about the separation of the Protestants and the Catholics. That's a pretty big change. Please also tell me about the interpretations of different sects of Protestant Christians. Like, for example, evangelicals. And, for example, Christian white nationalists in America. Or, for example, the difference between a Baptist church and an independent. The Pope is not our authority. Christ alone is our authority. Thank you for demonstrating my point. Things have changed, and there are different sects that have different things. Traditions change, both contextually and over time. All you're doing is telling me how right I am. Thank you.
If the tradition lasts for 2,000 years, then we look back as to how did they get to that conclusion? How did they reach that?
If the tradition lasts long enough, it makes it real, or it makes it true? Tell me about that with Chinese traditions, then. Go ahead. Tell me why your 2,000-year-old traditions are better than non-Christian Chinese traditions that have lasted longer than 2,000 years. Oh, having trouble keeping up, I see.
verdict, and if that verdict is in alignment with what we see in Scripture, it means that their verdict was correct in Scripture.
They never reach that verdict. As I have historically pointed out, they never reach
in all of the major church councils.
He keeps interrupting him. Yeah, surprise, surprise. They didn't come to a consensus, motherfucker. These things have always been growing and changing because church has been part of society, and societies evolve and change, and those interpretations change.
It was very...
the modern day.
Well, no, I'm talking about in like 300 and 400 and 500. The original
Which in the
church
scale
councils,
of 2,000 years is nothing.
No, but they set this unbroken chain.
Exactly. The scale of 2,000 years is absolutely meaningless. It's meaningless. It's just number big, therefore correct. That's not how it works. It's an advanced ad populum fallacy, actually, because he's just saying a lot of people believed it for a long period of time, therefore it is correct. And he's claiming they came to a verdict when they did not, definitively. That's why you have people separating out and moving away from the church and starting their own. That's why you have Paul in the Bible rebuking different churches. So even in the Bible, there's examples of this. Sar for two said, "Prove Jesus wants to save Chesh and I'll convert." We have also reached our goal, so let's get our goal rolling. Let's switch on over here real quick. And let me do the counting, shall we? We have 6, 7, 8, let's call that 11, well, let's call that 10, 16, 17, 18, 20. Oh boy, I gotta take a big one. 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Oh wait, we should actually count from the prior one that we had, shouldn't we? So let's do that. This was the one we had last. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Oh no. Oh no. Haha, I am in danger. Got it. Oh no. This is the face that's on the bottom of this one. Oh no! All right, listen. We want to get the full effect of this, so hold on. I'm gonna go pee, and then I'll do this. Sar, why? Sar, why have you done this to me? What did I ever do to you? Alright. This one's got like a little bit of a mustard smell to it. It's extreme jalapeno. I don't like jalapeno. I mean, my opinion about Jesus isn't gonna change my opinion about Charlie Kirk. You know what I mean? So, like, I could convert to evangelical, born-again Christian tomorrow, and I would still think Charlie Kirk is an asshole. In fact, I would suspect that Jesus would also... I know a false prophet when I fucking see one. Oh, it burns! Whew! Tell you what, if you want to have a conversation about religion and my personal beliefs, join us on Debate Hub, where we have a philosophy show every Saturday. The first Saturday of every month. Oh, Charlie isn't a prophet. I agree. He just wants people to think he is. He's a false prophet. So, same with, like, Joel Osteen. And, like, that, I'm gonna blow the COVID away. That fucking freak. Oh. That's spicy. That's a spicy meatball. Alright. Whew. Oh, boy.
We've had an unbroken chain and a course that says that marriage is one man and one woman. The church has never wavered on this.
Noted by the British Empire under British form of Christianity.
I'm talking all the way back to like 200 or 300.
Which means it's changed. Oh my god, absolutely rolled.
The idea of biblical Christianity goes back to the early times of the church when it was a scattered, persecuted church well before King Justinian and well before the Eastern Roman Empire, well before mass conversions. When it was a persecuted church, the church believed in one man, one woman. And because they got it.
Whoops. Did Charlie Kirk just admit that fucking that the church isn't currently persecuted? Because I'm pretty sure that fucking very Americanized persecution complex, like that is a very like unique to America. Like it's spread a little bit to other places, but it's very like American dominated idea.
From the scripture itself. Do we want to keep going or?
Can we move on to the next question, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
You notice that he always has to have the last word, and he always has to keep interrupting the person at the end, and then pray to the fucking woman sitting there being like, let's move on. Again, so we're 3 for 3 on this. Okay, we're gonna wrap up soon, but I want to see if we can get this last guy in.
Thank you. Our next question is from Damsith Wimalasena from Lucy Cavendish College. Thank you.
Hello, Charlie. Thank you for being here. Just before I start with my question, I wanted to address something you said earlier on sort of Western Christian values being the reason for the abolishment of slavery globally. I'm not sure whether you know this. I've seen you repeating this quite often. I'm a practicing Buddhist, and it was actually Buddhism, Buddhist emperors, Emperor Ashoka of India, who first abolished slavery globally. So...
Fucking wonk. I miscounted? Oh no, what did I miscount?
I would sort of ask you to sort of look at other sort of...
I will look into that. He did it globally? They had that much, the Buddhists had that much span of influence?
Oh, within India.
Okay, I'll look into it. Thank you.
Thank you. So first of all...
It's funny that he likes to say that about Buddhist, but his claim that American Christianity abolished slavery globally when Canada had abolished slavery before America did. What a fucking goomba. When was the what year was because there's an argument to be made that slavery still exists in America, that it's not actually gone. Like there is legal slavery still in America that usually revolves around conversations about the prison system. I missed the conservative. Oh, it is 4. We are 4 for 4. I was right the first time. Thank you, Red Cedar. Thank you for the correction. When was the last state? Which is interesting because Charlie Kirk is buffeting the people and supporting the people who are fucking waving around the fucking Confederate flag. So a little bit hypocritical there, but you know, whatever. To abolish slavery. Let's find out what the date is. Oh my god, that can't be right. That says 1995. The last state to officially abolish slavery was Mississippi, which certified its ratification of the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution on February 7th, 2013? What? Oh, wow, yeah, good job, Christian values. Oh, brother, no! Charlie, you Goomba! Oh, no. Oh, okay, so here's the link for anybody who wants to actually read it through. So it looks like abortion wasn't, like, allowed, but it wasn't, like, officially abolished. Fucking 2013! Guys, what did Charlie Kirk say? That the West's Christianity in America globally abolished slavery for everybody, which is why so many fucking American companies moved out of America to use slave wage workers, and why the police are allowed to do, like, fucking slavery for all intents and purposes, and why it wasn't abolished officially in Mississippi until 2013? Oh, I said abortion. Sorry, slavery. Fuck, that's funny. Oh my god, yeah, sorry, I meant slavery. Oh my god. Oh. Oh, that's very funny. Whew.
My first question, or my only question, is...
Fuck looking up what was going on in India, or because, you know, there's only America and not America. Just look at your own fucking states and they debunk you, Charlie, you goof.
You've advocated and applauded the reducing and removing of public funding for universities on the grounds they promote ideological biases. Given that universities play a critical role in driving national innovation, research, and upward mobility, especially through federally funded grants, how do you reconcile this position with the broader societal value that higher education institutes offer?
Well, they can, but in Harvard's case, for example, who's getting their funding pulled, they have a $50 billion endowment. Just so we are clear.
Well, they're not necessarily getting their funding pulled. Trump is threatening to pull their funding, but Trump doesn't have the power to do that. That's the power of Congress. Now, Trump doesn't really care, and his administration doesn't really care about, you know, the rule of law or the Constitution or, like, any of the foundations that America was built on. So he might try to do it anyway, but from my understanding, they're already in court, and a restraining order was already granted to prevent the Trump administration from doing anything to them in the meantime. However, that doesn't mean he's not going to break another court order and be in contempt of court, so that still could happen, but that doesn't make it legal.
Clear in pounds, that would be like what, 42 billion, 45 billion? I mean, I'm trying to learn the conversion rate here. I mean, it's an extraordinary amount of money. They can either use their endowments to fund it, and
so what? It doesn't matter. The amount of money is irrelevant. It could be $2. It doesn't matter to the question.
if you have certain behavior and certain practices, then you should not get federal funding. Harvard is in direct violation of the United States Supreme Court fair admissions case, which says you cannot discriminate people based on the color of their skin.
How are they doing that? Good luck.
Go ahead.
But isn't the whole point of it, you can't use endowments like that. The point.
By the way, the Trump administration's letter in which they are revoking, they're citing the revocation of some of this money for, like, for example, PBS. They are literally saying it's for political reasons, like, because they are not biased, but there isn't a legal responsibility for them to do so in the way that the administration is doing this. So the way the administration is approaching this is in their own statements of revocation, they are actually explaining and saying out loud how that what they're doing isn't actually legal.
Point of
They can.
The point of an endowment is to manage a fund through perpetuity. Cambridge has an endowment, and that endowment allows professorships to
That's too big of a word. Charlie Kirk doesn't know what endowment means. Not functionally, not practically.
Funded to allow for research into sciences. That's the whole point of an
You just said,
endowment.
hold on, you just said it funds research into sciences. That's what they should do with
That's
their money.
an example, not all of it, Charlie. Learn words. Learn to listen, you dishonest McBumblefuck.
Monstrosity of an endowment.
Yeah, but the endowment is, you can't.
The interest alone on their endowment could fund the entire research and development budget of most Ivy League schools. They have a $50 billion endowment. Even like a podunk money man.
I wonder if that's true. And so what if it is? I thought the whole idea was supposed to be money based on merit. Wasn't that the whole idea between like Project 2025 and what the conservative or what the Republicans were running on? So if fucking Harvard is doing the best job, should then Harvard not get the funding? If you're giving people things based on merit. Because we know that, you know, Pete Hegseth got his job based off of merit and is definitely not a DEI hire.
Manager in America can earn a 7 to 10% investment in the markets the last couple of years. That's $5 billion of returns that endowment could then reinvest in whatever they want. Instead,
that doesn't answer the question.
Harvard has become a hedge fund with a radical school attached. And I think that's very
radical. You're gonna call Harvard radical? Man, like, I've seen extreme right-wingers try to, like, apply words to like descriptors of things. He's an IUD, a DUI hire. Yeah, you're right. I've seen right-wing extremists try to apply words to things in, like, descriptors in ways that just make absolutely no sense and are absurd on their face. And, like, I mean, it was happening here, too, right, today, where, like, that's just something they do. It's all just ad hominem nonsense. But calling Harvard radical while at Cambridge, yeah, feline, calling them radical while he's at Cambridge is fucking hilarious. I would love to know how, in what way, Harvard is considered radical. Do they just, like, wear sunglasses, backwards hats, baggy pants, and ride around on skateboards?
Wrong for U.S. taxpayers to continue to subsidize.
But it's not just Harvard. You've called on colleges being a scam. You've constantly attacked higher education institutes. You've attacked liberal arts as a scam.
Oh my god, did they not like liberal arts because it has the word liberal in it?
For example, like a lot of conservatives, Peter Thiel studied philosophy at Stanford. Ronald Reagan studied sociology. A lot of them did study liberal arts, and you keep undermining these august institutions, which have provided a lot to...
See, he's trying to dodge the question and dodge what's actually being asked by trying to cherry pick out an example and then make a bunch of fucking claims without actually, like, that are just fundamentally flawed and, like, just fundamentally untrue.
Society. Like, society's backbones have been universities and higher learning institutes, and yet you keep attacking them.
It was actually one of the fundamental ideologies of America. One of the, particularly after World War II, one of the fundamental policy changes, I shouldn't say policy changes, that's not quite the right word. There were policy changes that followed, but one of the, like, the underpinning philosophies of making America and having America get stronger is the fact that more education makes your society better and makes your country stronger. So it's bizarre to, like, that suddenly, in certain cases, Charlie Kirk really cares about the fundamentals of America just so he can weaponize it against other people. But if you look at the actual fundamentals of America, they're just not applicable to the way Charlie Kirk wants them to be.
Well, they used to be largely, but again, I don't want to speak too much about this country, but in America, they don't represent fundamental American values. You know, Peter Thiel, after he graduated Stanford, wrote an entire book criticizing college and then paying people not to go to college. So Peter Thiel, who spoke at this very school...
So what? And the thing that makes college a scam or feel like a scam is the job market after the fact. And fucking late-stage capitalism problems. And that's not to say that capitalism is bad. It just means that the current capitalist situation has problems and needs fixing.
And you guys had a great conversation with him. Do you know that he believes college is such a scam? He would pay people $100,000 a year.
So what if this guy thinks that thing? It doesn't matter. Answer the fucking question, Charlie.
for 20 years straight not to go to college. So not exactly a good argument in your favor. Peter Thiel, who got a philosophy degree, made billions of dollars, and has now forked over tens of millions of dollars for people not to go to U.S. universities and colleges.
Yeah,
You know that there's a really big difference between U.S. universities and colleges and universities and colleges in the U.K. and university and colleges in France and university and colleges in India and university and colleges in Canada. Those are different places. Australia, New Zealand, pick a country, China. Those are different things. Guess what, Charlie? Not all universities and colleges operate the way fucking American universities and colleges operate, you dumb motherfucker. There's other places besides America. Again, we are back to the same fucking broad brush problem of these fucking extremist right-wing nutcases. It's not, there's more than just America! We don't all have the same problems that you have.
But it's not just Peter Thiel.
I know, but you mentioned him, I didn't. But to complete the point is that...
As Thomas went to, did liberal arts.
Look, in America, there are far too many people going to college. We need people to become welders, electricians, people that work with their hands. There is a major trade deficit problem in the United States. We have 11 million well-paying jobs that we cannot find enough labor for, and instead we have a lot of people going to university to go study North African lesbian poetry. It might sound good, but it doesn't necessarily, A, either development the content, the character, or the development of the soul, and B...
He's getting mocked again.
It does not necessarily also give you the skills necessary. Some college is good for you. I'm a big proponent of Hillsdale College.
Guys, can you please be quiet?
Hillsdale. Oh, okay. Sure. Let's get you. You go to college for your soul. Yeah, that's. No, you go to church for your soul. That's what the church is for. Holy shit. Too many people with critical thinking skills. Yeah, they've been making fun of him the whole time.
I believe Hillsdale College is America's greatest college, and I'm a big proponent of that. But I would ask a question.
Should we do a dive on Hillsdale one day? Maybe. Perhaps. The character of the soul. It's magic!
America's greatest college, and I'm a big proponent of that. But I would ask a question. In your own words, what do you believe the purpose of college is?
Could you answer the question they asked you first and then start? No, he can't. He can't answer any of these questions. He's fucking 5 for 5.
It's critical engagement. But coming back to your point on lesbian poetry or whatever.
Did you see how quickly and how straightforward that guy answered the question? You might have missed it. I'll play it again.
In your own words, what do you believe the purpose of college is?
It's critical engagement. But coming back to your
critical engagement.
Point on lesbian poetry or whatever.
North African lesbian poetry.
North African lesbian poetry.
Ooh! I like that the crowd is reacting the exact same way I am. Look at this guy. This girl. They're fucking, everybody's having a good time except for Charlie Kirk. He keeps looking around smiling, but really he's not looking around. He's looking directly at the lady sitting on the fucking chair, hoping she's going to save him. the moderator.
So in the morning, I actually had a lecture on development policy. And
see, you'll notice most people are sitting on the right and on the left and around that way, and he keeps looking the opposite way away from the crowd when he's done speaking, because he knows this is a tough crowd for him. They do not agree with him.
One of the key...
And he's not convincing anybody either.
Or whatever.
North African lesbian poetry.
North African lesbian poetry. So in the morning, I actually had a lecture on development policy. And one of the key authors on sort of development economics is Nussbaum, who talks about how liberal arts sort of engages you critically. And one could argue, even North African lesbian poetry, I don't think that's a degree, I think that's just a module within a degree.
Maybe.
Yeah.
He doesn't even fucking know, man. He's just making shit up, and he's getting called out by it. Oh my god.
That makes you
The fact you don't know shows how rotten to the core universities have become.
You're taking one example.
What? I'm sorry, does Charlie Kirk think that when you go to university, you're taught what the modules are for every degree? Is that what does he think universities are about learning about universities? Do you expect somebody who studies fucking social science to know what all the modules are in chemistry? Do you expect somebody who studies chemistry to know what all the modules are within a biology class? Or a biology degree? Do you expect a PhD in philosophy to cover what all, if you were to do a studies in literature and literature history, let alone if you were to study literature history and then modern literature, both of which would be you would have a course in modern literature if you were studying literary history as your major, and if you were doing a PhD in historical literature. But you would also, if you were doing modern literature, you would still have a unit likely or a course likely on the history of literature. But the history of literature inside of the modern literature would not be as in-depth of the entirety of the literary history, and vice versa. Ask me as somebody who's gone to university. This man is so disingenuous that he just has to be this stupid. He has to act like he is this fucking dumb to make anything he says sound confident. It's incredible. A PhD in historical literature with a focus on North African lesbian poetry. Wonderful.
And telling conservatives and hordes of young people that college is a scam. College isn't.
Yeah, he's saying it's not justified. That even if what he's saying is true, that it's still not having one example of. So it's like saying that we shouldn't have teachers anymore because this one conservative teacher sexually assaulted a child. Right? Or saying, hey, we shouldn't have schools in America because there's too many school shootings. At least you have a better argument for there shouldn't be schools in America because there are too many school shootings. That, you could actually form a cohesive argument around that. I think you could have actually a really good point. I wouldn't agree with it, but I'm also not somebody who says that somebody can't make a good point that I don't agree with. Clearly that wouldn't be the right answer, but, it doesn't make it invalid.
Scam. I mean, I took my mum down to a pub just down the road where Watson and Crick announced DNA.
Guys, wait 1 second.
If college is a scam, then DNA wouldn't have been discovered. With cancer research.
Yes, hold on a second. Yes, you're right. At this specific university, you guys split the atom. You had Sir Isaac Newton. You had some of the greatest minds of the West. I don't know about what's happening here, and I'm not going to criticize it. But at most colleges...
Yes, you are. You have been, but okay.
...in the West, they've gone...
Not in the West! Brother, not in the West. He doesn't know what the West is. He says the West, and he means America. And that's not necessarily always the case. For example, Harvard is considered, or at least was considered, one of the most prestigious universities in the world. In the world! So what the fuck do you mean, most colleges in the West? Community colleges? I don't know what's happening here. LOL, he's right about that. Yeah, drink for Charlie Kirk being right about something.
You guys split the atom. You had Sir Isaac Newton. You had some of the greatest minds of the West. I don't know about what's happening here, and I'm not going to criticize it. But at most colleges in the West, they've gone away from places of inquiry and appreciation of what is good and what is beautiful and into this incessant oppression Olympics of trying...
First off, what oppression? Second off, define oppression. And third off, when you learn something, you don't just learn the good things that have happened. If you study history and you only study the good things that have happened, you are missing out on swaths and swaths of history to the point where you don't even know anything at that point. That doesn't even make any sense. Why would you do that? What about Greece? What about the universities and the learning places inside of Greece and Rome that were not based on Christianity? The pre-Christian ones. Good and beautiful are subjective terms. Absolutely. Practically fascist dog whistles at this point. Yeah, true. Especially if they're coming from Charlie Kirk. Contextually, that is definitely a dog whistle. But, like, there are also schools in India. There are things like, for example, the Pythagorean theorem. Pythagoras was not the first person to come up with it. He might have been the first person to come up with it where he lived. Maybe. I don't know. I'd have to double check. But he wasn't the first person to ever do that and write out that equation. China, India, the whole Babylonian era. Like mathematics, philosophy were done in places that Charlie Kirk would not consider the West. Education developed before Christianity did. Universities and debate and discussion existed before Christianity did. Japan. Again, this is this really fucked up disease that is existent inside of the American psyche and the American ideology at this point. And because I don't know what else to call it. That is just like this isolationist, blind view of that nowhere in the world exists and no history has ever happened anywhere else, where you just make these bizarre, bold-faced, bloviated, disgusting claims about, like, the world and things existing that have completely unrelated. Sure, but Christianity is a branch of Judaism. Then this is exactly what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You have swaths of history around the world that has nothing to do with the Judeo-Christian sphere. Completely isolated, that we're doing things and having discussions about morals and having discussions about ethics and having discussions about math and philosophy and theology, completely unique, completely isolated from this Judeo-Christian stink that these people are applying to everything. Because this isn't real fucking Judeo-Christian shit. This is just trying to apply it and forcefully, retroactively shove it up everybody's ass in places that it doesn't fucking belong, which says nothing about whether or not the Judeo-Christian values are good or whether or not the Judeo-Christian values and stories are true. It's completely independent, but these fucking people... Pay attention, motherfuckers. Listen. Good fucking God. There is so much more out there, and these people are so willing and blind to fucking anything outside of their own little bubble that they then have to isolate and then isolate and then isolate. You remember Charlie Kirk talking about the Bible? He was like, no, but this one passage taken completely outside of any context around it whatsoever. And then said, oh, no, you can't talk about other parts of the Bible to understand the context of this one passage. You can only take this one passage as it is. And then immediately turned around and then referenced an Old Testament passage in reference to Jesus. Motherfuckers, pay attention. There are holy, secular things that were going on independent of religion. There are wholly religious things that were going on, independent of secular things, and things that were kind of blending between one thing and the other thing. Well, again, for example, when you had a religious position, a cardinal, for example, was a political position. To a degree, nowadays, sometimes still is, depending on where you are and when you look. So it's almost like all these attributions that Charlie Kirk is making, a lot of the attributions that are being made in the chat today have just been wholly unfucking viable because this fucking rot of fucking shoving Christianity into fucking everything retroactively at the fucking tossing out of the baby with the bathwater and everything that anywhere around the world has done. It's hard to say that it's not just racist, and it's hard to say that it's not just, oh, we're America, we're the best, and completely fucking ignoring literally anywhere and everywhere because you have to shove your own fucking belief system into everyone else's dick when nobody fucking asks for it, and you don't need to do that. You can accept that mathematics exists independently of your theological belief. You can accept that when life begins is a philosophical discussion that is beyond what your Bible says because your Bible doesn't answer that question. You have to extrapolate and interpret. And that is based on your fucking worldview and your context of who you are and when you are and how you've grown up. That doesn't mean you will come to a wrong conclusion. Sometimes these things don't have a right or wrong conclusion, and when life begins isn't a fucking moral question in the first place. Go fucking figure. So fucking stop. Fucking cut it out. Are you even capable of having a conversation about anything without trying to shove your fucking religion down everyone's throats, speaking about it as if it's a global phenomenon, when it actually is an incredibly Americanized blinder that you fucking put on and applied to fucking everything. Not everybody's American. Not everybody on the internet is American. Fucking no, not everybody you talk to is fucking American. Other places fucking exist, you psychopaths. Stop it. Actually learn how to have a conversation. I'm gonna end there. I'm done my rant. God, you people are fucking infuriating. You're the worst. The fucking Americans are starting to learn that the rest of the world doesn't actually like you that much. It doesn't like your government. It doesn't like your fucking religious doctrine. It doesn't like you applying your religious doctrine around the fucking planet when it's completely not applicable. They don't like your attitude. They don't like the fucking way you walk around places and fucking destroy and shit all over fucking everybody's goddamn fucking religious spaces and sacred places like you fucking don't give a shit. I'm explaining why I'm angry. You can't listen? You should be angry. People should be angry about this. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. And the world is fucking sick and tired of just letting fucking America wander around like it doesn't, like it's not fucking, the emperor has no clothes. Good God. Fucking ridiculous. Absolutely absurd. And see, the Cokes is still fucking doing it. You can't not, can you? It's not possible for you. The West's Christianity. Fucking ridiculous. It's an isolated niche of a bubble inside of a bubble and trying to fucking force the world into a box. Anyway, we'll be back for part 2 of this. We got an hour and a bit, hour two, about an hour left. I'm gonna get out of here. Charlie Kirk's gonna get rolled more, I'm sure. He's 5 for 5 of getting rolled, and we're only halfway through this guy. I should have made a counter. You want me to check the link? Alright, I'll look at the link. The decline of Christianity in the Western world. Very funny. Oh, it didn't stick. There it is. Amusing. Fantastic. Well, Paul, you're more than welcome to go back and watch my explanations and my amusement at watching him get rolled the entire time. Hopefully Americans start actually taking their religion a little bit seriously and learn to humble themselves somewhat. Anyway, I'm gonna get on out of here. It's not your business to tell other people how to live their lives. I'm gonna get, will Charlie Kirk ever answer a question? Oh my god, I guess we'll find out next time on Dragon Ball Z.
God have mercy on your soul.